Okay, so you ever have one of those moments, you're at the grocery store, your kid sees the candy aisle,
Yeah.
and suddenly it's like a symphony of screams because they absolutely need those gummy sharks.
Oh,
I know that feeling. Like it's like a universal parenting experience,
it's
right?
pretty much a rite of passage, I think.
It's gotta be. So that's what we're diving into today. See if this book can help us navigate those
Yeah.
meltdowns, but with maybe a little more grace this time. 1, 2, 3 magic.
A little more grace, a lot less yelling, hopefully.
Exactly.
Yeah. Parents, we've all been there, right? It's not just you. These meltdowns, they're like a universal language for kids sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But what I find fascinating about 1, 2, 3 magic is this. It actually approaches parenting as a skill, almost like you can train for it. Like you train for, I don't know, a marathon. You're not just thrown in the deep end. There's a method, there's techniques. It's kind of cool, actually.
Like a practical guide to, taming these tiny humans we love so much.
Exactly. Taming, but in a good way.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Because when I first saw the book comparing parents to wild animal trainers,
Right.
I have to admit, I was a little taken aback.
It's a little jarring when you first read it.
Yeah, it sounds a little extreme.
It does, but it's not about being, mean or using a whip or anything like that.
Thank goodness.
Right. It's more about understanding that sometimes we fall into this trap of treating them like little adults. Like they should just get it.
That little adult assumption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But, their brains aren't quite there yet. They're still figuring out boundaries, pushing limits. And you know what? It's kind of like training a puppy when you think about it.
It really is.
Consistent actions, clear expectations. That's what they respond to.
Yeah.
And this method,
Yeah.
it kind of throws out those lengthy explanations and goes straight for shaping that behavior.
So instead of me getting down on their level and trying to have this whole discussion about, why we put toys away and
Oh, yeah.
using our words and all that good stuff.
While they're knee-deep in a Lego masterpiece, refusing to budge.
Exactly. I've been there.
We've all been there. 1, 2, 3 magic is like, stop, don't go there.
Yeah.
No talking, no emotion during discipline, just action.
You know what? That's what really got me too. Because I think, especially as a parent, it's so easy to get caught up in that emotional tug of war with your kid.
Oh, absolutely. You feel it in your gut, that frustration.
They're frustrated, and it just spirals.
And then it becomes this big showdown.
Exactly. But this approach, it's almost like take a step back, detach a little, not in a cold way.
Not cold, no.
But just stay calm. Don't add fuel to that fire.
Yeah, it's about shifting that dynamic, It's not that we become these, emotionless robots.
Right.
But it's about, okay, I'm in charge here. I'm the calm, steady one. And that actually helps our words carry more weight,
It makes sense. You're not just like another voice yelling in the chaos. You're the steady one.
Exactly. You're the leader.
I like that.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. Less talk, less emotion. Got it.
Right.
But how does that actually work?
Yeah.
Like in the moment.
Right.
When, my kid's using their mashed potatoes as finger paint at dinner.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
What do you do?
So this is where 1, 2, 3 magic gets, surprisingly practical
Okay.
because they have this counting technique, right? And it sounds almost too simple, but
Too simple.
yeah, just count. That's 1, that's 2, that's 3. You're giving them those 2 chances to, course correct, before anything happens.
Okay.
And it's like this universal signal amidst all the chaos that things are about to change.
Right.
It's not yelling. It's not getting into it. It's just
Right.
1, 2. They know what's coming next.
So is it like automatic timeout at 3 then?
See, that's what I thought too.
Yeah.
But it's actually more nuanced than that.
Okay.
The 3, it's not about time out specifically. It's about a consequence.
Okay.
But it's consistent.
Right.
Like you've already thought about what it is. So maybe it is a timeout. Or
Yeah.
maybe it's losing a privilege,
Mm-hmm.
Whatever makes sense for this situation. The point is, there's no guessing for the kid.
Right. So they know.
Exactly. They know what to expect. It takes out that whole what's going to happen. Are they going to yell? Are they going to give in?
Oh, so it takes you out of it too a little bit emotionally.
Exactly.
Right.
That's the key difference here. It's not about us getting all worked up
Right.
because
yeah.
honestly, that never works.
No, it doesn't.
It just escalates things.
Totally.
So the 1, 2, 3, it's almost like this neutral rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
It shifts the focus from our reaction to their action.
And I think that's so smart because you're right. When we get emotionally invested as parents,
Oh, yeah.
it never goes well.
Never. They feed off of that, right?
Totally.
But with this, you're just like this calm, steady force.
Right, like the eye of the hurricane.
Exactly. And it sounds crazy,
Mm-hmm.
but that counting, it really can work.
You know what, actually, that reminds me?
Yeah.
There was a story in the book
Uh-huh.
about this family. They were going to get ice cream.
Oh, no, what happened?
And it was like this whole thing, right? It illustrated the whole timeout alternatives idea.
Oh, yeah, the TOAs.
Yeah. I thought that was so interesting. So instead of like the classic timeout corner, which, let's be honest, sometimes isn't even an option.
Right, like when you're in the middle of Target.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is where those TOAs are like genius, especially in public.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you're not engaging in the battle of wills anymore. You have this consequence that makes sense in the moment.
And it clicks for them, you know?
Hmm.
Because their brains are still developing, they get it way better than a lecture in that moment.
Oh, total.
Like that example from the book with the ice cream outing.
Yes.
I mean, come on. Kids start acting up in the car on the way to get ice cream.
The worst time.
The worst. And the parents are just like, nope, turn this car around, no ice cream.
I can just imagine those kids' faces.
Oh, I know. It's brilliant though, right?
It is, because
Yeah.
it's immediate and it makes sense to them.
Exactly. Natural consequences.
So we can handle those public meltdowns a little better now, hopefully. But what about those other parenting nightmares?
Okay, yeah. What?
Like the stuff that makes you want to, like, pull your hair out?
Oh, there's plenty of that to go around. Homework battles.
Oh, the homework battles. My patience is tested more during homework time than I think any other point in the day.
Tell me about it. It's like all the stress of the day just collides.
It's true.
Yeah.
So what does 1, 2, 3 magic say about that?
Well, they have a whole section on homework.
Okay, good.
And I have to say, it really resonated with me. Like, they're big on routines.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, routines saved my life.
Routines are everything.
Right. Like, knowing what to expect when, it helps.
Keeps everyone on track.
Exactly. And then another thing I loved, they're all about the rough checkout.
Okay, what's a rough checkout?
So, basically, it means not every single homework assignment has to be perfect.
Okay, so like letting go of a little bit of that control.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes good enough really is good enough.
Right, you don't want to crush their spirit.
Exactly. We want them to, like, enjoy learning, right?
Yeah.
Not just be these little robots churning out A+ work.
Totally. And, another thing that gets me, with homework especially,
Look at that.
those last-minute requests,
Oh, you mean like, oh, by the way, you need a diorama of the rainforest due tomorrow.
Yes. And it's like, how am I supposed to? We don't even have those little fake trees.
Right. And it's like suddenly you're the one scrambling trying to make it happen.
And then everyone's stressed.
Exactly. So the book talks about, like, getting ahead of that.
Okay, how? Because that feels impossible sometimes.
Yeah. Communication, mainly. Like talking to the teacher, knowing what's coming up, and also teaching our kids to, like, speak up themselves if they need more time or help.
Okay, so it's about giving them some of that responsibility, too.
Seriously.
It's funny because it all makes sense, right? Like when you're talking about it. But
Yeah.
then when my toddler's having a meltdown because, like, the crust on their sandwich is touching the peanut butter,
Oh, I've been there.
it's like all those calm down strategies go out the window.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
It takes practice.
Yeah.
This isn't like an overnight transformation.
Right.
It's about, like, making those small changes consistently.
Yeah.
I had this one client, she was like at her wit's end,
Yeah,
morning tantrums every single day
Yeah.
about getting dressed. It was like World War III.
I can picture it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we work on, like, building a routine.
Making it predictable. And then we added a timer. So there was this, like, external sense of urgency, And then we even gave the kids some choice. Like picking out their outfit the night before. Exactly. And it wasn't perfect, but slowly. Those morning tantrums, they lessened.
That's amazing. See, that's what I love about this stuff.
Yeah.
It's like those little victories, they make such a big difference.
They really do. Because it's not about, like, being this perfect parent, Nobody is.
Definitely not. Speaking of which, one last thing that I loved about the book,
Yeah.
it's not just about ending the bad behavior, right? It's about building up that positive relationship with your kids, too.
Oh, absolutely. That's key. It's like we can get so caught up in the don't do this, don't do that.
Right, all the correct,
Yeah.
that we forget to, like, actually connect with these little humans.
And they just want to feel connected to us.
Exactly. They want to feel seen, heard, And 1, 2, 3 Magic, it talks about this stuff, too.
So what are some of the ways they suggest building up that positive side of things?
Well, they have this whole thing about sympathetic listening, which is honestly life-changing.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So it's really trying to see things from their perspective,
Even when it makes absolutely no sense to us.
especially then.
Yeah.
Because to them, their feelings are valid, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's about, like, the blue cup not being the red cup.
Right. It's their version of a real problem.
Exactly. And when we can, like, validate that, even just acknowledge it,
Mm-hmm.
it makes such a difference.
That's so true.
And then they also talk about this thing called overparenting, which I'm, like, totally guilty of.
Overparenting, what's that?
It's when we do everything for our kids.
Oh, right. Like swooping in and saving them from every little struggle.
Yes. But the book makes this great point, like, are we really helping them in the long run when we do that?
That's a good point. Because they need to learn how to do things for themselves.
Exactly. So it's about finding that balance, between setting those loving limits,
Right.
but also letting them figure some stuff out on their own.
It's hard, though, because we just want to protect them.
I know. But we're actually doing them a disservice if we don't let them, like, fall down sometimes.
You're right. They need to learn how to get back up again. So besides the sympathetic listening and trying not to overparent, any other, like, quick tips from the book that we can use to build up that connection?
Oh, yeah. This one's so simple, but they're really big on one-on-one time.
Okay, like dates with your kids.
Exactly. And not just, like, in passing,
Mm.
but actual dedicated time with each kid.
Oh, that's nice. So they each feel special and heard.
Exactly. Just like 15, 20 minutes even, talking about their day, really listening.
It's amazing how much, like, even that little bit of time can make a difference.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because they feel seen, they feel heard, and it prevents so many problems down the line.
It's true. Sometimes it's easy to get so caught up in, like, the day-to-day chaos
Oh,
that
exactly.
you forget to nurture that connection with your kids.
I know. Dinner, bath, bedtime, repeat.
Exactly. It's like the hamster wheel of parenting.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, this deep dive into 1, 2, 3 magic has been honestly really eye-opening.
Yeah. What resonated with you the most?
I think just the reminder that, like, this parenting thing, it's hard, and it's okay to not have all the answers.
It really is.
Yeah.
And we're all just figuring it out as we go.
Exactly. And if a simple counting technique can bring a little more peace to my chaotic house,
Right.
I am here for it.
I'm with you. And you know what I love about this book? It's practical, but it's also, like, really funny.
Oh my gosh, yes. The author, Dr. Phelan, he does not sugarcoat it.
Not at all. He's like that friend who tells it like it is,
Totally, like he's been in the trenches, he gets it.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that makes it so much easier to relate to.
It does. Well, this has been great. Hopefully our listeners have some new ideas to try out now.
Fingers crossed. And remember, like, every kid is different.
That's true.
So what works for one might not work for another.
It's about finding what works for your family.
Exactly. And, give yourself some grace along the way.
Yes, we're all just doing the best we can.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, that's it for this deep dive into 1, 2, 3 magic. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of parenting.